Welcome to a Simple Therapy podcast. Real conversations, brave stories, and simple, soulful insights for therapists and anyone on a healing journey. I'm Sindee Gozansky, licensed therapist, supervisor, and a fellow human figuring it out too. Around here, we believe healing doesn't have to be complicated, and that leading with your heart still matters. We talk about what it really means to be human in and out of the therapy room. You'll hear from therapists, mental health professionals, and people courageously sharing their personal healing journeys. Because whether you're the therapist or the client, we're all human here. Let's keep it simple and keep showing up. Hello and welcome to a Simple Therapy podcast. Today, I am so happy to introduce you to my guest, Kara Cruz. Kara has a passion for supporting both clients and fellow therapists, and this is really at the heart of everything she does. I'll tell you a little bit about her. Kara Cruz is a licensed marriage and family therapist and perinatal mental health specialist who is deeply committed to supporting fellow therapists. Through her therapist group Bootcamp, continuing education trainings, and clinical supervision, she gives therapists the tools to grow both professionally and personally. One of her goals is to help therapists help women thrive, and she's passionate about healing the helpers. Kara is also the co-founder and co-owner of the Women's Support Circle, an international community for connection and healing, and the creator of the Wellness for Women Healers community, designed to nurture those who spend their lives caring for others, and so much more, which we'll touch on today. If you want to check out her website, it's Kara Cruz, KaraCruz.com. And welcome to the podcast, Kara.
Thank you. That was such a nice introduction. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's so nice because we align on a lot of things about like serving with our heart and really promoting the health and like the balance and support that therapists can have in doing this really hard work that we choose to do.
Yeah. I love it. I love supporting other therapists and healers. It's one of my favorite things to do. Yeah.
Mhm. Well, a little background. We're coming from the opposite coasts. I'm here on the East Coast and Kara's in California. So let's jump in with one of the things you say that I love, emotional labor of caregiving professionals. Like, how do you define this? I think this is so significant for what we do, but often we just like gloss over it and maybe even pretend it doesn't exist.
Yeah. When I think about that, I think it comes from so many different areas because I think of work. I think of caregiving in the home setting, caregiving with family, with friends. So there's so many ways to look at it and define it, but the emotional labor is often what you don't see. It's what you carry, what you hold. And a lot of times you feel it internally. We sometimes override it. We try to kind of just push through. But it's not often the things that we can, kind of check a box on or put a finger on or see. But it's there and it has an impact and it affects us if we don't take care of ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And so some of these effects, I think therapists are familiar with burnout, with like soul exhaustion, with, feeling just really stressed out, questioning their careers. Are those some of the ways you see this emotional labor kind of impacting therapists?
Yeah, absolutely. What I see is we see this in our clients and the people we help, but oftentimes we don't recognize it in ourselves, or we think that I can kind of just get through it or override it, or I don't deserve to take care of myself in the way that I hope that my clients would take, or my family or my friends would take care of themselves. We kind of, I don't think it's that we think we're invincible. I think it's just that we think sometimes that we're not important or worthy enough to take care of ourselves, or we think that too many people need us and we're afraid to let people down. And so a lot of the things that I see in my clients, the women I work with, I think the reason I love working with therapists so much is because they have a lot of similarities. where they are afraid to speak up, advocate, take time off, take a break, take a rest, say no, have a boundary, all those things, we
Right.
help clients with. Those
Yeah.
are some of the similarities I see in the types of healers and therapists that I work with as colleagues, and sometimes not the colleagues, but people will come to me who are therapists as a client, and we share those similarities and can relate to one another.
Yeah. So, for the listener out there, and you're probably a therapist or a helper if you're listening, especially to this episode, you just heard Kara say, like, afraid to say no, think you're not worthy. Well, I don't need to do this right now. I have too many other responsibilities. Like, for that person hearing all of this, what can they do? Because it's sort of like such a shift to say, wait a second, I have to put the attention on me instead of you described this self-abandonment. And instead
Mhm.
of that, you're saying, if you heard yourself in what Kara just said, what's next?
Yeah. Well, and I think that the trouble is that there's fear. It's
Mhm.
behavior and patterns that we hold on to out of fear of being in trouble. Even as silly as it sounds as an adult in the workplace, I'm afraid I'm going to get in trouble. I'm afraid that um, I won't be needed. I'm afraid that I'll let people down. I'm afraid that things are going to fall apart. So it's very much fear based, and the reason that we carry on these behaviors is a form of protection. It's not that it's not something that I want to shame or tell people that they're wrong or they're bad, but we do it out of fear, and we do it out of coming from a place of protection to keep ourselves safe. And that sounds silly, but really it is. Safety is staying connected, keeping our job, keeping people happy with us. We don't want to ruffle any feathers or cause too much trouble or be a burden to others. And so there's safety in overworking, overburdening ourselves, not saying no, not protecting or upholding our boundaries. And so
Yeah.
the first step, I think, it kind of sound silly, but is just to kind of sit back and look inward and find out the what and the why, because it is going to be different from person to person. It kind of the themes are similar, but really when you get down to the core of what it is, it can be very different from person to person, from the part of self that we're working from.
Yeah. Yeah. And resonant in that are, those themes of trauma and spoken as, a trauma therapist and you're EMDRIA certified and all of that, right? You
Mhm.
see those moves of protection and the places we go to survive and deal with our trauma. And we experience a lot of vicarious trauma as helpers. So there's that too. And then, putting ourselves at the bottom of the list.
Yeah. And the goal is to maintain safety and to maintain that protection. And so we'll do so at any cost, or what we've learned works. And sometimes what works ends up harming us in other ways, but it works. So we continue on until we learn something different, or that can still get us the safety that we need, but it might look a little different.
Yes. Yeah. I love that reflection, for somebody listening. At what cost? Think of what you're doing. I'm not an exception, right? Like we were just saying, oh, we're so stressed out and, getting through this. And then we both are seeing clients right after this recording. And so we are not immune from this. And so at what cost, right?
Mm.
I just encourage you to think about that and reflect on that. Let's backtrack. Kara, how did you get so passionate and interested in supporting and helping therapists before we talk about the many different ways you do that? Like, how did it happen?
Yeah, when I first started out, I really enjoyed working with children. So I started out as a therapist working in the school system, working in group homes, working with teenagers in a shelter. I really loved working with kids. And that was kind of my drive to, seeing, kind of even before grad school, knowing that I wanted to be some sort of helper. I just really was, I had a heart for, I was working in the schools and would see children who, were suffering or harmed, or not doing so well, didn't have the support they needed. And it really just broke my heart. And so that was kind of what pulled me into the therapy world, and wanting to know how to support. And then as I was working with children, I really found that it was really hard to support them when their parents weren't supported, when their parents were kind of still stuck in the patterns, because, you know, without the follow through in the home or the ability to follow through, parents are stressed, they're working sometimes multiple jobs. You know, they've got a lot going on, they're surviving. And so to participate in therapy, that's kind of like an added bonus if I have time. You know, it's really hard to do that. And I felt very stuck, that I couldn't help the children in the way I wanted to without helping the parents. And I would find myself working with, often it was the moms, and, you know, they would joke sometimes and say, well, could you just be my therapist? And I'd say, I can't, but I can help you get connected with one. And I just found that I really enjoyed the time I would spend with the parents and the caregivers, and particularly, like I said, the moms. And then in addition, I was also doing direct service. I was a supervisor. So part of the time I supervised other, this was in an early intervention program. I wasn't quite in grad school yet, but I supervised, it was a bachelor's level school-based program. And I was, supporting brand new, you know, people who it was their first time getting kind of a formal, like a real job, or, you know, they would call this is my first real job, and I'm helping kids and helping students, and watching them kind of come in very naive and very timid, and seeing them grow through their first year. And I just loved supporting other helpers and healers and building relationships with them. And then when I went to grad school, graduated, I stayed at the same agency and became a therapist there, moved into the mental health department, and then also became a supervisor in that department. Not a clinical supervisor, but more like clinical coordination. And I just really loved supervising, working, and supporting the other therapists. That was one of my favorite things to do. So I knew once I, you know, went into private practice, that I most likely would be working with adults. I knew that I would love to work with helpers, whether it be medical, mental health professionals, teachers, because at the schools, the teachers would come to your office and kind of, you know, vent a little bit and kind of process and say, could you be my, you know, we'd have that joke, that little banter. Could you be my therapist? No, but I can help you to get connected with that. And so I just knew that that's where my heart was and who I wanted to be helping when I went into private practice. And to be able to support the adults, I would be better supporting the children that way, because many of them had children or were caregivers. And if they were healthy and regulated and felt supported, then they were going to be able to go home, and that would translate into, you know, healthier family systems. And so, long story short, that was just, you know, that was kind of what drew me to working with helpers, healers, and adults.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I really love seeing that thread, you know, like you stated, the same agency and then transitioned to mental health and supervising, and, you know, from working with like the baby social worker's first job to the next, you know, like supervising licensed people. It's great.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And I always knew I wanted to go into private practice. I always knew I preferred the idea of clinical supervision over administrative, because that was more, you know, evaluations, and you're doing a lot of admin tasks, which I was still supporting, you know, the staff, but I knew I wanted to do more of the clinical perspective, and also helping them to make sure that they're keeping themselves healthy as well. You know, as a clinical supervisor, we don't do therapy with them, but we also are kind of watching and kind of helping to manage and making sure that our the people we supervise are getting their own support outside of work as well. And that was one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things I can see we have in common is both that love of working with supervisees and also continuing to be therapists ourselves while we're doing other things in the realm of, you know, clinical supervision, education, other programs, things like that. I find as I supervise master's level students or, you know, conditionally licensed, you know, or associates, that I become a better therapist because everything I'm doing with them is also reminding me, oh, you're missing this, or, oh, you need to return to this a little bit more, or could you use more, you know, gentle confrontation or curiosity, or you fill in the blank with X client. And so I think it's rare to find somebody who's like also still working in the field and doing all of these other things, multiple streams of income and so on. I think that's pretty great.
Yeah. For my brain, it's nice to be able to not have too many things going on at once, but things that are related, but be able to kind of switch my brain on and off, you know. So to be able to do supervision is a little bit of a change and a switch up from the direct, one-on-one therapy. And then running groups is a different, a little bit of a change up, and the energy shifts from doing the one-on-one and the supervision work. So I really enjoy having some variety. It's good for me and for balance, and also just to keep the skills and the learning, and learning from even the new, newer therapists coming into the field. I learn a lot from them too. We learn a lot from one another.
Yes, yes, that's so true. It's so rich what we get to do. Um, since we're talking about the supervision, share a little bit about your supervisor circle. I saw that on your website, karacruz.com, and I'm like, wow, I want to participate in this. What's it about? Who can do it?
Yeah. So a colleague, so my the co-founder of Women's Support Circle, her name's Natalie. Her and I founded Women's Support Circle, and we found that a lot of the women, it's kind of the same story. A lot of the women who'd want to come to our circle were therapists and helpers and healers. And so because of that, we did a local event. Every other month in our area, we go to a local establishment and do a therapist night out, which is like a networking. We get to come together. We don't go and present anything. It's not super formal, but it's just a time to support a local restaurant or establishment, get together, get to know who the therapists are in our community, and get to know them face to face and talking to them. So when we refer, we know who we're referring to.
Whoa, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Therapist night out.
Yeah, it's a
My
lot of fun. Yeah.
Wow, like everybody should do this. So these are just other therapists in your community. You let them know what's happening and you meet up?
Yep, we meet up, and we really try to find, again, sometimes it's a chain, but we try to find locally owned, restaurants, establishments, places where we can go to support those spaces. And then we invite therapists. We've had therapists, we're in the Modesto area in California, and we've had therapists from drive like hour and 45 minutes away to come to the event. It's really cool. And so I know in our mind, we've been thinking it would be really cool if other places started something like chapters, and then we come together once a year and do a really big event. But it's a lot of fun because you get to know, we have people who are still working in organizations and agencies. Their organizations will send them with like their brochures and handouts. So we get to see the different places we can refer our clients to for support. We get to know the other private practice therapists, so it's nice to know, oh, that's that person who, really specializes in co-parenting, so when I have that referral I need to refer to, I've met them in person. I know them. I kind of know their style and their energy. I know if it'll be a good fit versus just kind of pulling up a name in a web search, And so, and it's fun. So we do this about every other month. We get together, and sometimes we have groups as large as 40, 50. Sometimes there's 5 or 6 of us. And either way, it's great and it's fun. There's a local Pilates studio. The owner, she's very much into our community and supporting the community and domestic violence efforts. And she actually hosted us one month and offered a free yoga and sound bath class because she just was like, I really want to support you and your other therapist. You guys help so many people. And so we did our therapist night out. It was the beginning of the year to start the year off at a yoga studio. So we had snacks and goodies, and then they did a 30-minute sound bath yoga session for our therapist. And that was probably one of our biggest turnouts that we've had.
That is amazing.
So we try to be creative and not just kind of stick to the same, doing things different. There's a group of therapists who go on hikes. We haven't done events with them, in that sense, but they get together and go on hikes every weekend to the coastal areas and really beautiful places in nature. And it's just really neat to see that we're taking care of ourselves and we're doing things that they are work, but it's outside of work. It gives us a chance to connect and have a little bit of fun.
It's so important. It's so needed. And I love that model. Anybody else could start it, whatever city or town you're living in. And people long for this. We are isolated. Even if you're in an office, you're still behind the doors, right? In your session or on telehealth. It's not like we have that much time to connect. Even with my group practice, I just sent out a Google form about like check off which activities you might want to do as a team, because we still need some kind of connection. We have to know each other to be able to support each other in this hard work. So I love what you're doing. And networking, it's really important. I actually also had the opportunity to go to one of these networking events this summer that was in my local area that another organization was putting on. And we didn't even think it was real because she posted it in our like little local Maine Facebook group, and it was like a free lunch at this great restaurant, and nobody could believe it was really real. And yet it was, and people showed up, and we got information about new programs coming, in an underserved area, got to meet therapists. It was just the coolest thing.
Yeah, it's so much fun. So we started that, and that was very, we kind of just started as like a one-off, like let's just get together and see what happens, and people really enjoyed it. And so it was very low, it doesn't require a lot on our end of, we're busy and have a lot going on. It doesn't require a lot from us to have to prep. It's kind of just find the place, RSVP, make sure they can fit us all, and show up, and everyone kind of shows up. It's very loose, like show up when you can. We try to find places where there's open seating, and people come in and say hi and leave. And it's really neat. You'll see people from like, coworkers from the same organization, and they'll be sitting at a table and laughing and having fun. And even if we're not all together all the time, we're all still, saying hello. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it. I love it. I look forward to it. I always leave feeling refreshed and energized when we leave that space. But from there, there's a few of us that meet for consultation, and Natalie and I found that we were continuously, she's a supervisor too, we were messaging each other a lot. And we had a lot of clinical questions that involve supervision. And we found that we didn't really have a space for support from supervision, because a lot of our colleagues would have good insight, but they'd say, but hey, I'm not a supervisor, so I don't know, you might want to check on that. And so we decided, we know how to form groups. We started Women's Support Circle. We started Therapist Night Out. We know how to put things together. Why don't we start a monthly consultation virtual group? And we started it for California clinical supervisors, just kind of thinking we get a small group together, maybe 5 or 6 of us that would meet. And we ended up getting, I think initially it was like 20 people the first time interested. And we had people from out of state. Can we come? And we decided to open it up to just any clinical supervisor anywhere. And we just are mindful that if we're in different states, that we might have different laws and, regulations and all that good stuff. But so we meet monthly. The first Thursday of every month, we meet 1 p.m. Pacific time, 1 to 2 via Zoom. Any clinical supervisor, if you're aspiring, new or seasoned. So we have a mix, and we meet. It's very, it's also very relaxed. We have kind of somewhat of a, structure. We check in. We'll sometimes have a topic of the month if a lot of questions are coming up about, training, CEs for supervisors. Maybe that'll be our topic that month. But then we do some case consultation, or consultation if we need to on our supervisees. We also have had guest speakers come in. So that's something that we tried a couple times, and it went really well. So that's something that we probably will continue to do quarterly, where we have maybe somebody who's a guest speaker on, maybe there's a law and ethics expert that can come in and talk to us, or maybe we had somebody come in and talk about IFS and how it shows up in the supervisor space. She did, Rachel Bentley from Michigan. We also had a colleague of mine, Tracy Peary, who came in and talked about dissociation, because a lot of the supervisors work in community mental health and agencies. And these are these are really overworked, overwhelmed supervisees who have like some of the most severe children they're working with. And there's a lot of trauma, and dissociation goes along with that. And so she came in and gave us a mini training on that. So that's something that we're wanting to incorporate going forward to, quarterly guest experts. And then we also want to incorporate continuing education opportunities as well. Even if it's an hour quarterly or a couple times a year. So that's something that we really want to grow this space. And it's been wonderful. We've had a lot of the same people who come back every month. So we're building relationships. And if you're a clinical supervisor and you're listening, you're welcome to join. You can sign up from my website.
That's awesome.
Free.
Wow.
Free too. I don't know if I said that, but it's free.
What? It's free. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. It's 1 hour once a month. So
yeah, so generous. And it's such a need. And I think supervisors fall into the same roles that we were talking about at the very beginning, kind of self-abandonment, not getting the care and the support we need, or feeling, for many reasons, not reaching out because, what's it going to mean if I ask for help? Does that mean I'm not a good supervisor, or, any of those things?
Or I ask a question that I should know the answer to. There's fear oh, I should know this. I'm afraid to ask. It's kind of like, going back to school. You're afraid to raise your hand and ask the question because it's been 3 weeks in math class and you should already know the answer. So there's like embarrassment or shame, but there's no shame. It's a, safe place. You can ask anything. We're all there to support one another. And I love having the mix of, aspiring, new and seasoned supervisors in one space because we all have so much that we can share and help each other with.
Yeah. It's always that. The collaboration is key.
Mhm.
Yeah. Love it. Did you know 1 in 5 people will experience a mental health issue this year? That's why I created Mental Health Threads, to spread awareness and break the stigma around mental health. At mentalhealththreads.etsy.com, you'll find a collection of inspiring and fun products, from t-shirts and hoodies to mugs, hats, candles, and more, all featuring positive messages that encourage self-care and mental well-being. Best sellers like Go to Therapy, Love Wins, and Still Here are fan favorites, along with our signature semicolon designs and Pride collection. Therapists especially love our exclusive items like Licensed Listener and Professional Secret Keeper. Our mission is to spark important conversations and remind you that you are not alone. If you're ready to make a statement and support mental health, head on over to mentalhealththreads.etsy.com today. Let's make mental health a priority together. And you mentioned the CEUs and continuing education, and even like putting together in the future for like the supervisory circle, like 1 hour webinar or something like that. Lately, I'm finding people really like that because, again, you're so pressed for time, but those hours add up. And if it's something you really want, you dive in and then you can, do more after that. But really seems to be a growing trend to do these like 1 or 1.5 hour webinars. It's just so accessible and can fit it into the schedules.
And they do add up.
Yes.
I look back on, I'm actually getting ready to renew and going through mine. And I think, oh, there's a lot more than I thought was there just by doing some of these little, 2 and 1 hour events that come up.
Right. There's a reminder, everybody. Look at when you need to renew. I just did that the other day too. Like, oh, November.
Yep.
Yeah. Kara, so you also are talking about this new program where you teach therapists how to create, how to plan, design, build, and launch groups. Tell us
Yes.
about that. How'd you get started? Because clearly you're like a group guru. So give me the backstory.
I'm learning too, but it's one of my favorite things. I have been running groups for about 15 years now. Throughout my time in agency work, I ran groups in schools, at a shelter for teens in the group home setting. Also ran my very first group that I ran that was really big and official, that was kind of scary. I was early in my 20s. It was called Parents and Teens Together. And I didn't have children, didn't know anything about parenting children, but hey, when you're a kind of a brand new person, you get thrown into things that you're not comfortable with. It was probably my least favorite part of my job at the time because I didn't feel confident. And it was in the evening. It was always the end of the week when I was tired. But one of the things that my partner who I worked with and I decided was like, okay, we both every week, we're going into this like, oh, we've got this group to run and we're not looking forward to it. What do we not like about it? We just found that we weren't excited. So we revamped the curriculum. We made it fun. We made some changes in terms of boundaries and things that were kind of like feeling like they weren't going well. And we spent some time on it. And it actually became one of my favorite parts of my job that I looked forward to. And so at that, I think that was kind of when I discovered my love for running groups because I had more confidence in doing so. And so, during the rest of my time where I worked, running groups was one of my favorite things to do. And eventually I started facilitating. Our agency had core trainings. There's like 5 or 6 different ones that every new employee has to do. And group facilitation skills was one of them. And of course they said, oh, we need you to teach this. What? But then that became my favorite thing to do because I kind of created, an outline and curriculum and a training that was my own. And I felt it was fun and engaging. And when I went into private practice, I was running groups here and there, and I would have therapists reach out to me and, the whole, can I pick your brain? Like, how did, all the little questions and logistics, like what platform are you using? What do you do for your informed consent? How do you do this? And getting lots of questions like that. And I was doing one-on-one consultation. And, I just found that, one-on-one can get, I don't feel like as much can get accomplished in like one-on-one consultation. There's so much that goes into running a group. And I feel like you get the most out of being with other people and talking to other people and getting feedback. And it's also a process. It's not like a 1 hour, pay for a 1 hour consultation. It just didn't feel like I didn't feel like they were getting what I wanted them to get out of that time, the time they were spending, the financial investment they were spending, and then what I was giving only in 1 hour. And so I had several people at once asking kind of for the same information. And then I had one person say, well, if you ever do it, you do all these CEs and trainings. If you ever do something on this, I would join. And I thought, well, why don't I do that? And so for therapist group boot camp, like, I'll just do a one-time boot camp. And the people that have been kind of waiting to, we'll just get this group together and get them together, kind of teach them. And I'll kind of work on it as I go, kind of using the same idea that I do when I start a new therapy group or support group. And hosted the first one, and I had so much fun. I enjoyed it so much. It reminded me how much I love working with therapists.
Wow.
It actually helped me to kind of refine some of my own groups and do a better job on, my consent forms and cleaning things up and marketing them better, because I was really paying attention to what they were doing. So
Exactly. The
I was
parallel process again,
Yes.
whether we're supervising or teaching, right?
Yeah. So it just became one of my favorite things to do. And I decided to do it. We're in the second cohort. I started the first one back in spring. And now I'm kind of getting signups for the third cohort. I also planned I did a workshop as well, because I thought, I kind of want people to kind of get their foot in the door and see. 6 weeks is a long time to decide if I want to spend the time doing this. It goes by fast. It's only an hour each time we meet. But there are kind of things in between that you're doing, but it helps you to pace yourself when you're planning your group. You have a community of other people in your cohort that you can, it's off social media. We're in an app called Heartbeat. So you can go and ask questions and post their flyers and get feedback. So it creates that space, kind of like a mastermind. But I just found that, it's a lot for people to make a decision to do a 6-week boot camp. So I have a 75-minute workshop that's called Plan Your Therapy Group. And it gives people a little intro to kind of get their feet wet to see if it's something they really want to do. And so that's something I'm doing throughout the year, ahead of each cohort that starts. So if they're kind of interested and they're not sure they want to commit, they can do the workshop. And they get a workbook and they get the replay, and then they can kind of decide, like, I want to go further into this and actually implement this group. And then if they want to, they can join the 6-week boot camp. So we meet Tuesdays, 9 to 10 a.m. Pacific time. This round, I have guest expert speakers coming in on topics like marketing, messaging, vicarious trauma. My next round, I'm trying to find someone who's an expert on legal and ethical issues so they can come in and help us, because there's always all those questions of, if I'm running a therapy group versus a support group, and how can, there's so many things that come up, and boundaries and, dual relationships. And so I want to get it right and give the right resources and information. So I'm looking for more guest experts who are able to come in and share their wisdom with our boot campers. And it's just a lot of fun. So it's a lot of fun. And then once boot camp ends, we do a reunion, a month post to kind of see how people are doing, check in on them. And then they have access to a community if they want to continue on, where they can continue, if that, 6 weeks down the road, they're running a group and they run into something, they can kind of share in the group and ask questions.
That's cool.
So, and then we'll focus on continued marketing, because marketing is just something that never ends and it's always changing. So
Yeah. Wow. That's fabulous.
it's fun.
Your excitement about it is just so palpable. And I want to go back and highlight that, because when you talked about that first group, the parents and teens, or and I love how you said, that was totally out of your comfort zone because you were young and didn't have kids and all of that.
Mhm.
This is a stretch, and I think it's really important, especially newer therapists, to take those risks and figure out, what do I need to do to maybe stretch out of my comfort zone a little bit. Some of like myself and older therapists, if you started with like agency work, and not everybody does now, you didn't have a choice. Like, you went out of your comfort zone all the time, but that's not necessarily true. And I love how you said you and your partner figured out, okay, it's not exciting for us. we could be more interested in this and into this if we made it more exciting, made it more ours. And you kind of like put yourself in there as a way to not that it was necessarily more comfortable, but it was more interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And it became comfortable and it became fun. And there was a confidence that built because now we weren't reading off of like a pre-purchased curriculum that we are like, am I doing this right? It was, I know if I'm doing it right because, we designed it, we created
Yeah.
it. So there was a confidence that came with that. And I think that was kind of that first, I look back and think if you're not happy in a situation or you're finding that it's not working well for you, it could just be that it's not for you. And that's okay too.
Absolutely.
But it also could be that what can I do to change things or make things different or make it to where I can enjoy it more,
Hmm.
than I
Yeah.
already am. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's such great advice. And to kind of own a little bit of it, right? Put a little bit of yourself into it, which is what you guys did. This therapist group boot camp sounds amazing. So it's 6 weeks, then you have like support afterwards through the group. A new cohort is starting. When do you anticipate that?
We start October 7th.
Oh, okay.
Tuesday, October 7th, we will start and it'll go 6 weeks. And then the next round will likely be into 2026.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Excellent. And
We'll
people can find out through your
uh,
website?
Yeah, my website, if they go directly to my website, there's a page that just says Therapist Group Boot Camp. It walks you through the details. You can sign up right from that page. There's also the link to the workshop if, you're not sure if you
Mhm.
want to do the full 6 weeks, but would like to do the 75-minute workshop. And the 75-minute workshop really is an introduction where the person is kind of just clarifying their concept, identifying the type of client they might want in their group, coming up with the structure. Is it open, closed? Is it a 4-week group, 60 minutes? Kind of just all the things that people get stuck and hung up on and get in that decision paralysis. I coach them and say, you can change it later. Right now, we're just making a decision with your lowest hanging fruit. We're just going to go with it
Oh, good.
and then get it going. And then you'll know the routine. And then if you want to change it later, you have kind of those hard parts figured out. And then if they want to get into boot camp, then it's, much more in depth. So we basically cover that same in the first week, we cover the same workshop material,
Mhm.
but it's more personalized because there's less people in there. And then today we met this morning and it was legal and ethical considerations was our topic. We do marketing and messaging. We talk about group structure and format. Any topic that comes up, and we kind of can tailor it to depending on the dynamics. The first round I did was all reproductive mental health focused group. So if you're a reproductive mental health therapist, whether perimenopause, perinatal, postpartum, it was really focused on that topic. And so everyone in that group, we all had like the same niche.
Oh, in that cohort, they were all
Yeah, in
focused
that
on that.
cohort. And then this one, I
Oh,
opened it to anyone. And so in this one, we do have just because some of the people that I'm connected with are kind of in the women's mental health realm, but we do have a couple others who've come in, cancer survivors group, grief support group, adolescent group, topics, birth trauma,
mm,
88
geez.
with the ADHD group. So now the topics are kind of opening up, but it's nice to have that because then we get to know one another. And when we're working with clients and we know I need to find an ADHD group for someone, I don't do that. I remember I met so-and-so in my cohort. I really thought that I trust them. I would refer to them because I got to know them in those 6 weeks. So it builds that community as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as I listen to you, and I know these things are not easy, you are so like tuned in to niching down, to creating a program. It's not as simple as what you're saying, but even with the workshop and then kind of like going into the 6-week boot camp. And as you talk about this, like, oh, these are the things you get hung up on, like who is my ideal client? How long is the group? All of that. Like,
Mhm.
as you share this, I feel so much more confident, just like, oh, she would just help me make this decision. Boom, boom, boom. And this is what somebody wants if they're feeling nervous, right? Like, just take some of that decision paralysis away. You're the expert, but you're sharing your wisdom in a way that's also really collaborative.
Yeah, and we share with one another. One of the boot campers, she is really good in Canva, and I use Canva all the time. But I just was like, I just kind of know it because I learned it as I went. I don't know all the, technical ways to do. She offered to do a live little kind of tutorial for some of our she said, "Hey, next Friday, if anyone wants to join, I'm going to do a Canva tutorial." And she did it this round too for someone. And yeah, so there's just like this community, this sharing. We share templates. I share templates and different things, with the group members, the cohort members, and others will share what they have too. And so some have a lot of experience running groups. Some are brand new to it. Some are in between. And so it's kind of the same thing with the supervisor support circle, where you get a mix of people, and we share and we give each other feedback and we help one another. So it's a really cool space, and I'm really excited to just continue to grow it and make it better, and listen to the feedback from the initial cohorts who kind of like, worked out the rough edges with me in round
Right.
one. And a couple of them came back for round two. And so I'm just wanting to really just grow this and make it better and better each time, so that it's really just, yeah, a wonderful experience for everybody and a great resource.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope people will check it out, that definitely like the next cohort that's happening for therapist group boot camp and the future ones. And I feel your excitement. People will feel that and what they could get from it. And also just think about, we can impact more people, right? One to one is great. It's, you know, it's deep, it's relational. We love that work. And also most of us, are advocates at heart and really want to be able to impact more people. And a group is a great way to do that.
Yeah, I love it. I know some people are nervous about groups in the beginning, but I mean, really, you have other people with you, you have support, a built-in community, and also it's typically less expensive too financially. Right now with everything in the economy and time consuming. It's less time. It takes a lot of time initially, but you get things done. Um, and you make progress, but it's also less expensive. And that's important to me too, is that things are accessible.
Oh, I love that. It is so important. Accessibility. And for the therapist running a group, it also kind of provides different energy. And as we were talking about at the beginning, you're so aware of like the therapist support and what we need to manage, you know, the caregiver strain we have and burnout and exhaustion. And bringing in some different things can help with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. We're running out of time for our conversation today, which has been so fun. I want to mention for the listener that Kara also has some amazing training. So you've created continuing education for therapists and professionals, and everybody can check out her website and see like it's in a bunch of, different specialties as well as, mental health, women's mental health, ADHD, all of the prenatal, pregnancy, postpartum, perimenopause, and all sorts of other specialties. And so there's a lot of continuing education there. Is there anything we should add to that or something that's coming?
Um, that was perfect. But I do have two trainings to kind of end the year.
Mhm.
One's called Focus on Women and ADHD Approaches and actually Assessment and Intervention for Psychotherapists. And then I have Supporting Women Through Perimenopause Approaches for Psychotherapists. Both are 3-hour CE events. They're online, live, um, and approved through NBCC. So one is going
Wow.
to be held at the end of this month, September 25th. The ADHD training is going to be October. And then in the new year, I'll have the calendar out with what's on, depending on when this comes out, but I'll have some on the calendar for the new year as well.
Oh, that's great. Wow. And kudos to you to get them NBCC approved. That is not easy or inexpensive. So great job there. We'll link to all of these things for sure. And I definitely want to check out some of those trainings. Um, just kind of wrapping up, I mean, I am so grateful for your time today, and I really acknowledge the work you're doing, Kara, and that you take time out of your busy schedule to talk with us and share with my listeners and people out there who want to have more support as a helper in this profession, because sometimes it feels like it doesn't really exist, or how can we access it? And you make it very easy. You have the free supervisor circle, which is amazing. And you're still working so hard. And so providing this for us is just really a gift. And thank you for sharing so much of your wisdom and expertise with us.
Thank you for having me. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. What message would you like to leave to therapists listening who are like feeling, maybe not completely burnt out, but a little exhausted, a little confused? What should their next step be? Or, how do they get out of this funk and get a little bit more care or support or figure something out for them?
Yeah, I always say just start small because we can think of a million things and that's overwhelming in itself. But picking, and I say this to my clients too, pick one thing today or pick one thing this week, short term, that you can do to protect your energy or take care of yourself. And it can be the simplest thing is I'm going to, make an easy dinner. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to take a hot shower, or I'm going to call up a friend. It's wherever you feel like your needs aren't being met. Pick one simple thing to do. As far as for therapists, I always say practice one boundary that maybe you have that you haven't been upholding, and see if you can practice, and don't expect it to be perfect, and don't be hard on yourself if you don't. But see if you can practice upholding the boundary a few times in the next week and see how it goes. The first time, maybe you're not successful. Fine. The second time, maybe you're a little bit better. The third time, maybe even better. So practice one thing. And it could just be ending your workday on time, not answering texts after work. It could be taking your lunch break. It could be ending your session on time. It could be, doing something for yourself in the morning before you start your workday. Any small thing that's doable, manageable, but keep that promise to yourself and show up for yourself.
Oh my goodness. That's so beautiful. That's such gold advice and I love it. It sounds simple, and even like I call this a simple therapy podcast, we have to start simple, and even that is complex, but you've really given us a gift to think about on both of those levels. So beautiful. So start with something very simple we can do for ourselves and hold one boundary. So great. That's
Mhm.
awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you again, Kara, for being here. Everyone can check out Kara's offerings at karacruz.com. It's a beautiful, beautiful website. And I look forward to us talking again. There's so much more we can discuss.
I do too. And for fun, if you're on social media, Kara Cruz Wellness on Instagram, I do post a lot on there. I know sometimes going to a website, people forget to do that, but I do post, fun videos and reels and also just information. So if you're on social media and you're not a client, go over there and say hi. I'll follow you back and we can
Oh,
connect on social media.
that's awesome. I love it. Yeah. So let's do that. Let's all connect and think about how we can be supportive of each other as we go through this work. Thank you for all of the great wisdom and reminders, Kara. So,
Thanks for
yeah,
having me.
absolutely. Okay. Thanks everyone for listening. And until next time, remember, let's keep it simple and keep showing up. Thanks for listening to a Simple Therapy podcast. If today's episode resonated with you, please subscribe, leave a review, or share it with someone who needs it. Your support means so much. You can learn more or get in touch at asimpletherapypodcast.com. And remember, let's keep it simple and keep showing up.